Hi, everyone. My name is Rahul Thatikonda, and welcome back to the How They Built It podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs who are transforming their industries from the ground up and uncover the stories behind their success. To start off this episode, we have Sheyenne Kreamer with us, CEO of Universal Solution Alliance and a longtime leader in purpose-driven entrepreneurship. For over 2 decades, Sheyenne has been creating human-centered business models designed to develop people, strengthen communities, and empower organizations from the inside out. Through Universal Solution Alliance, she focuses on unlocking human potential in companies by redesigning hiring systems and building cultures that treat people as the heart and soul of business. Alongside as her work as a CEO, Sheyenne is the author of the book Skip the Politics and Create Heaven on Earth, co-founder of the We Care Partnerships Network, and creator of programs that blend business with wellness, spiritual coaching, and innovative stress reduction tools. From launching intentional communities to mentoring social entrepreneurs, she has dedicated her career into helping people live in their purpose and create businesses that create actual change. So today we're going to be exploring her journey into social entrepreneurship and the unique tools that she used to help people overcome the emotional and physical barriers, and her mission to lead a new generation of purpose-driven leaders. So, hello there. How are you doing today? And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Rahul. I appreciate it. I am Cheyenne Kreamer, and interestingly enough, most people find it interesting that my husband and I are full-time RVers. This is our home on wheels, and we are been on the road for 6.5 years now, looking for a place to start building a new kind of community where we have a new partnership with the Hope Institute, and our intention is to work with young adults who are struggling to find their path in life. We intend to house people, heal people, and teach them the trade.
Great. Yeah, that's looks like you'll be a perfect uh, audience for the people who are going to be watching this, because this podcast is really suited for like teenagers, young adults, and it's kind of to push them to show that business does not always have to start at like a super old age, or like we have so many unique ideas right now, and it's kind of to show that we can even if we have an idea, we're able to pursue it at this age. So, yeah, it's great hearing a little bit about you. And so now we'll jump into your kind of background before you started your business. So, where did the idea for your business come from, and what pushed you to like actually start it?
There was a lot of elements that kind of came together in a perfect storm that caused me to go down the path that we're on now. It started as far back as high school. I was valedictorian of my class, and my valedictory speech was called Follow Your Heart, because I found there were so many of my classmates who were headed off to college to study what their parents wanted them to study. And there were just so many, and I'm not here to bash parents. There's a lot of well-meaning parents. They want the best for their children, and I know I've got two sons of my own. But it was just that there was this disconnect. And one of the things that I've become very passionate about is helping people to understand that we need to connect our heads and our hearts when we start looking at career paths. And I don't care whether you're looking at a traditional job or whether you're looking at entrepreneurship. But that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened was I actually did not go direct to college. I went into an apprenticeship program with a Fortune 500 company where I learned about manufacturing from the ground up. So that was a 3-year program. It was a lot of hands-on learning, and it was a great experience. I ended up working for that company for 11 years, but I ended up getting laid off twice in the same year by the same
Wow.
company, because they laid me off and then they moved me 800 miles. And it was supposed to be a plant startup that I thought I was going to be in for a long time. And 6 months later, it became a plant closing. So it was about that time that I said, you know what? 2 layoffs, less than a year. I don't like this game. I've got to figure out how to do something different. And it was literally, because I had no entrepreneurial training. Nobody in my family had ever been an entrepreneur. So it was something I knew nothing about. But it was like 3 weeks before the plant was going to close that I had been working at. And I was actually cooking dinner, peeling potatoes, I believe. And all of a sudden, I got this crazy idea that popped into my head. And the words I heard were, be a consultant. And I was like, where did that come from? Because that was totally illogical for me. Again, nothing, I didn't know how to sell anything except Girl Scout cookies. That's what I'd done growing up. So I knew nothing about sales, nothing about marketing, nothing about any of these things. But it was interesting because what I learned in that experience, because I was like, all right, I don't have another job offer on the table. I'm gonna go for this and just see where it leads me. And it was interesting because it only took me 3 weeks from the day that I had this crazy idea that I had a 6-month consulting contract. And so that was kind of the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And it was amazing in many, many ways because it was the first time when I had control over what I was doing in my career. And, I was so used to, you come up with new ideas in a big corporation, and a lot of times you'll hear, oh, we already thought about that, or, that's not something that's appropriate here. I mean, you couldn't get people to try new ideas. But when I walked into this consulting role, it was kind of weird because I remember talking to the manager. He was a human resource manager, and I kept saying, but David, this is what I think we need to do, but if you don't want to, I'll understand. Because I was so used to having my ideas slapped down. And he's like, no, you're here because we're going to do what you say to do. And I was like, whoa. So that was the beginning of entrepreneurship for me. And I learned a lot and ended up deciding that I needed to help more people learn how to become independent consultants, because you can do a lot more when you're coming in from the outside. You're not tied up with, all kinds of rules and regulations of being an employee, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so interesting for me as well. I've done a few podcast episodes at this point. Everybody has a unique journey of how they started their business, right? Some people directly dropped out of high school, some people just thought college wasn't for them, and some people, yeah, there's so many different ways that people are getting into this journey. And one of the main things that I feel is that when younger actually have the passion from an early age, it actually is a massive benefit because they know from this young age that okay, this is I want this self autonomy. I want to be able to control what I'm doing. So yeah, that's one thing that I have noticed is that so many people get on this journey in many many different ways. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So, now we'll talk about like the early days of your business. So what did the starting of your business look like? You just created the company. What are your first steps essentially?
Well, it was interesting because, again, I kind of struggled. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go down the path of doing something where I was going to have more people involved with me than just me and my personal, journey of being a organizational development consultant. But at the time, I was seeing layoffs of all these tech people, and I know we're in this same space right here, right now in this country. There's been a lot of tech people laid off. And so that just kind of spoke to me. I'm like, okay, I knew nothing about doing independent consulting, but I kind of followed my guidance, my hunches, and I was able to do it. So maybe I need to just go out here and help all these unemployed people find a similar path and teach them that they can do it. Because here's a secret that most people don't realize. I actually learned how to sell while I was in corporate America, even though I wasn't in a sales position. And it was because I was part of what in corporate America at the time they used to call quality circles or problem solving teams or corrective action teams. And that process is the same process that you use to sell consulting services. Basically, you go find a problem, you go analyze the problem, you come up with a solution for it, you pitch the solution, you explain to them why they're going to get a return on investment if they purchase your services. That's what we did in corporate, and that's exactly how I ended up getting my early on consulting gigs. So I started teaching other people about this, and I created a membership organization. And in that membership organization, basically, they had to pay me a small membership fee up front for me to actually become a business development or prospect generator for them. So I ended up with a huge team of independent consultants, many who were going after it for the very first time. I mean, I had a team of people who were electrical engineers and IT people and finance people and HR people. I mean, it was a pretty big group. And what I was able to do, because I actually had worked as a recruiter for a while, I had relationships with recruiters all over the country. And so I started asking them, I'm like, okay, so if the economy's down, you're not making a lot of placements of, direct hire people. What if you could introduce me to some of your clients that you're not making money on right now, and I can help you make money again? And they're like, what? How would you do that? And I said, well, basically, I have a team of consultants. If you'll introduce me to those managers, those directors that you know, and tell them that I have a team of cost reduction specialists, and I'd just like 20 minutes of their time to come in and find out if I can help them in some way. And I had a number of recruiters who were. They were walking me into VPs and director offices all over the place. And when I would ask the high level questions to learn about what their challenges were, then could then say, well, all right, I think I've got some people that could come in and address this issue. And so I would bring them to the table, let them put together their own proposals, let them do their own thing of, closing the deal. Basically, I didn't close it for them. I just got them the appointments. And then they paid me a 17% referral fee if they close their deal. So that's how my business gets started.
Great. Yeah, this is honestly one of the more unique businesses that I've like researched about previously, and also I'm hearing you speak about now, because I feel like a lot of businesses are just about selling a product. That's what people like tend to think of, right? There's I feel like the main part is connections between people, and creating a
Yes.
business out of finding connections is, I feel, one of the best ways, because it opens your network, which is extremely important in any business, for just general sales. But in that type of a business, that basically like that is your sales. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Absolutely. So, yeah,
really
I
interesting.
mean, that's the thing. I was a recruiter for a while, and this was just another way to be a recruiter. I recruited my members, and then I went and found the people who needed them and just made the connection and got paid for being the connector. A lot of people have called me a super connector.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question that I have for you in this section of the origin story of your business is, what was the biggest risk that you took early on? So you start off a business right at zero. You don't have any sort of income. You probably already have expenses. So what do you think was the biggest risk that you took? Maybe financially, maybe um how much time you're spending on the business, anything like that.
Definitely for me, the biggest risk that I took was making the decision to stop searching for a regular job. Because, if you're really engaged in that, it's a full-time job. And so to kind of put that aside and say, okay, I'm going to pursue this, the good news is that because I didn't have to invent a product and I didn't have to go out here and learn a lot of things, the beauty of it all was that I had low overhead. So, it was not a high risk kind of business startup, other than the fact that I had to just kind of swallow hard and say, all right, I'm going after, these members, which they paid the membership fee. That helped to keep me going while I was working on developing opportunities for them. And so then that was the other side of the risk, was just, can I get in front of these managers who have a budget and want to solve problems in their company? So that's where the risk was. And of course, the big challenge of being a consultant, an independent consultant, is that when you're working, it's a great thing. But when you're working, you usually don't have time to go out and market yourself. So then all of a sudden you complete a project and now you don't have any cash flow, but you've got to go out there and market yourself. That's the challenge, is that up and down income stream. That's probably the biggest risk. And that was why I had created my company, was to try to, start to level that out for people, where I was helping to do the marketing and they could be out there doing their gig.
Yeah. I just have like one like mini question for that. So, how did you think your initial capital helped you in like starting your business, right? So, there's a lot of people who have this crazy idea, but I've also heard other people recommend that you get a job before starting a business to have that safety net, because as you're saying, there are a lot of financial risks that you take. So, how much were you reliant on like initial capital, or was your business kind of self-running from the start?
Well, because I did not go into business until I already had this crazy idea, and then 3 weeks later had my first consulting gig, that helped out a lot. But I will tell you that it also helped that I had the job, because when I got laid off that second time and I was part of a plant closing, now I actually had a bit of a severance package from them. So that helped to fill in the gaps while we were building stuff up.
Okay, so that is the first section that we have discussed, and now we will move into some of the struggles and setbacks that you faced in all of your years of business. So this is one of the most important sections, I feel, because this is where people can really learn. Previous and like current entrepreneurs are basically dealing with the challenges that they have, and we can learn from this, right? And the more episodes that we continue to make and watch, it's just increased experience, and how many and the information is endless, essentially. So yeah, I'm super excited to get into this section. So I'll just start off with a
Okay.
broad question. What was one of the hardest moments in your entire journey?
Oh my goodness. There have been so many. It's ridiculous. Um, Let me just give you a little bit of an understanding about what's different about me now versus where I started back in basically 2000. So that was a while ago, right? And what's happened, and this was the most difficult part of the journey for me, is that I'm a very creative sort. I believe that we get assistance intuition wise in terms of building, if you're really going after something. And what I started to experience was I would have success with something, and then it would all start to kind of die down. And of course, most entrepreneurs are going to say, well, you just got to work harder. You got to do more. You got to, have your head, you got to really be pushing on that grindstone to get more activity going. But what I ended up finding out for me was that I needed to build pieces of a very large puzzle. So what I am today is not just a one-trick pony entrepreneur. I've built a whole system. And it wasn't until I realized that I was here to build a system made up of lots of individual pieces, and now incorporates 2 for-profit businesses and a nonprofit. So this is now a 3-piece system. And I had to get to a point of being okay with the idea that I wasn't supposed to be a typical entrepreneur, because everybody says you got to have one focus and it's got to be like one product or one service, and that's what you got to go after. And I kept arguing with business coaches because I kept saying, no, this has got to be bigger. And it really became difficult for me to stand in my belief about what it was that I needed to build, because everybody told me I was full of baloney. I was totally crazy. I was off my rocker. And I said, but no, you don't understand. There is one thing I'm building. It's a system. So, and I believe, and I will just put this out here, I believe a lot of our younger generations are coming to the table with the potential to build systems. But everybody wants to slap them down and say, well, it's just got to be one product or one service or whatever. No, it can be a system. And I do believe that a lot of our younger generations who've been told, oh, you've got ADD, oh, you've got ADHD. I believe that a lot of those folks actually are there getting pieces to a bigger puzzle. And, even though some days you may look like, oh, you're over here today and now you're over here and you're juggling too many plates and there's no way that you can do all that, you have to learn to trust your own intuition, your own judgment. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take advice from other people, but you got to always come back to yourself and decide whether that advice feels right for you. That's been the hardest thing. That's been where I've gotten tripped up a number of times. And I will tell you that I've also, I also had a rather interesting experience a number of years ago that led to me getting more involved in the social impact side of things. Okay, to me, social impact entrepreneurship is where the future needs to go. And basically, that just means having a for-profit business that has a social impact built into it somehow. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. For me, it's become pretty big. And if I had any idea how big it was going to come in the beginning, I'm not sure I would have done it. But I will tell you that I ended up at one point in time, I have a class I created called Find Your Song and Sing It, Finding or Creating Work You Love. And I created that for people who felt like they were being called to something important, but they couldn't quite figure out what it was. And I was teaching that class to a room full of social workers one day. And I was so nervous about it because I was like, oh my goodness, these folks are working with homeless people and people who are, really struggling to have a better life. That's not where I thought I was supposed to be. I mean, I got to get paid. I got to do these things. And it was just really weird because during that presentation, I don't know if you've ever heard of having a deja vu experience, but I did. It was, I'm standing there delivering my material, and all of a sudden I just had this feeling like I had been in this room and I had said these things before, and it shook my whole body. And it kind of flipped me out because I'm like, whoa, this just doesn't even make sense in my mind. So my brain was going, why am I here? Why am I here? And it was strange because I kind of ran away from doing that kind of work. It scared me. It was like, I have to be able to have a paycheck, and who the heck in the homeless world is going to pay me to be able to teach them about these things? And it was kind of interesting because eventually, a number of years later, and it was largely because of some challenges that were happening in the family with health challenges, but we actually went through a total financial crash. And it was as a result of that and seeing up close and personal what some of these systems were about that, are about helping the homeless and helping, all kinds of people. That's what became the motivator for us to become more of the social impact entrepreneurs, because we saw people who had potential. We saw people who wanted to get up and do something different with their lives, but everything in the system kept wanting to keep them in the system. It didn't give them options for being able to step up and out of the trap that they were in. So that's the big story. That was the big heartache that I went through. And it was actually interesting because as I finally started to embrace that part of my world, I actually ended up with a community college that hired me to teach my class, and they put me in homeless shelters and prisons and all of these different places to teach people about basic entrepreneurship skills, and they paid me to do it. So I didn't even know there was a way that I could get paid to help these lower income folks. And yet it showed up once I was willing to embrace it.
Wow. Wow, yeah. That is truly like it. I feel like a lot of people will kind of rule out options about what they want to do, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying with all the systems and how people are kind of think that there's only one way that you should go. So, yeah, one question I have to that is a lot of people talk about how your business needs to be kind of flexible and like fault reliant. So I think that you took this in like a little bit of a different way, right? You started multiple organizations where I feel like a lot of other people would just incorporate multiple different ideas into one entity or one business organization. So, do you think that there was any benefit to you splitting it up into multiple different like bodies, or yeah, was that just like because your goals are like so different in each of them that it just makes sense to split it up like that?
Well, that is a great question. And quite honestly, when I look at the three components now, they actually create a funnel. So, you're probably aware of marketing funnels and things of that nature. Well, what I've created, and now I understand why I was a manufacturing apprentice, I've actually created a funnel that can manufacture social impact entrepreneurs and then get them engaged in community problem solving. So, Universal Solution Alliance, which you spoke about, is where we help people go from career transition into looking at different types of simple businesses to start, and then helping them to grow that, to get into some more cash flow. And then we can take people from there into the next company, which is We Care Partnerships Network, where we teach them how to get engaged in the community and be able to partner with nonprofits, just like I did with the community college system, to be able to get paid to help some of these people in the community with the products and services they offer. And then we have the nonprofit. So in the nonprofit, that's where we're getting ready to build those communities I talked about at the beginning of the show, where we can bring, like one of the groups we really want to help is aged out foster youth. Okay, because once they age out of the system, a lot of them are confused as heck. They haven't had a stable home environment. And so we want to be able to take some of them, put them into our campground in a camping trailer, and be able to help them to release some of the stress and the trauma that they've been through, and then teach them the trades and entrepreneurial skills so they can become an independent RV technician to repair RVs. So, and that is a very well-paying kind of position. And if they are independent, they could go anywhere and be able to help people and be able to get paid very well to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think, is there any other comments that you would like to add in this section? Anything that you major that you felt like you weren't able to talk about in the like any setbacks or struggles that you had? Or I mean, we'll also get to this a little bit later, but any like learnings that you had from this?
Well, for me, one of the biggest challenges for me has been that I feel like, now listen, this reorganization funnel has taken 25 years to build. That in itself, most people would have given up a long time ago. So that has been the biggest challenge, is staying with it and being able to trust in myself and whatever that I'm receiving in terms of ideas, that if I just keep going, it'll all make sense. Because that, I call this a system that has been built for where we are today in our society. Because the whole system is actually called the Unity for Wellness and Peace system. Okay, so we know there's a lot of division going on all over the place out here. There's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of ill health. So Unity for Wellness and Peace is the whole system. And 25 years ago, I kept going, why am I feeling so compelled to do this? What in the world am I doing? And now I'm looking at it and going, oh my God, this is for where we are today. So, that's tough, again, to trust. Because I've invented something. I absolutely have invented something. And so if you feel like you're being called to be an inventor for something, just understand that you may be ahead of the curve, that you may be creating something that 5 years from now people are going to be excited about, but today they're going to look at you and go, what the heck are you doing? That was the big challenge I had. So, believing in yourself and, being willing to be the problem solver. Every time you hit a wall, you have the ability to solve the problem and figure out how to get over, around, and through it. Just don't give up, because that's the only time you fail. The only time you fail is when you give up.
Right. That's a underlying message that I've got, at least from all the interviews that I've taken. But yeah, that is really, really valuable advice. Again, we will be going into the reflection piece of this a little bit later, so how about we hop over to the next section? So now we get to talk about a little bit more positive stuff, the growth and success of your business. So so this is like the strategies that you use to grow your business. Not just your business, right? You've talked about how it took you over like at this point like 25 years. There's a lot of mental aspect that goes into that as well, making sure that you're actually making progress. And yeah, it's just a remarkable journey. So I'm sure there has been a lot of growth and success that you would like to talk about. So we'll just start off with this. How did you what's been the most effective way that you have scaled your entire pipeline and system?
Well, I will tell you that because it's taken so long to build these individual components, we're just getting to the point where we can start to scale. Because that's the thing, is we've been able to build all these components and make them into successful components. But now that they're all being assembled into this whole system, this is where it's going to get interesting in terms of being able to scale the whole system. So, for me, it's always been about finding people that you can partner with, who can help you to be able to keep moving, keep growing. That's a big piece of it. I call myself a super connector, and I've partnered with nonprofits to be able to reach people that we need to help. Like last year, one of the things that we did was we did a huge event in Raleigh, North Carolina on suicide prevention. And the reason we did it was because some of our friends back in Raleigh, we lived there for 30 years, were telling us about all these campus suicides going on. And that to me just makes me extremely sad because I believe that there's so much positive potential in young people, and to be losing them in that way is horrible. And so last year, it was amazing. We were able to partner with all kinds of people to put this event on. We were able to get in-kind donations because we had the nonprofit component. We had people who gave us free admin assistants, virtual admins. We had people who had a guy who did a free concert for us to help us raise funds for the event. We had just all these people who came together around this whole idea of disrupting the suicide epidemic. So that last year was one of the real highlights of a lot of what we've done, where we saw that people were finally starting to see what we were doing, seeing what we were talking about, and coming together and bringing the small business community together with the community at large to be able to create something larger. I mean, it was a big event. It went on all day. We had 2 different churches that donated space to us, one for the concert, one for the event itself. So, that's what I'm starting to see more and more of is, what you can do when you bring a bunch of people together. And so that's the kind of success that I'm looking to have for more, because when you truly understand my whole system, Universal Solutions Alliance is designed to have 3 small business teams, one for career transition, one for business startup, and one for business growth. And then the We Care Partnerships Network is designed to take people from there and get them into a new type of small business team, where we're looking at teams for health and wellness, teams for prosperity and entrepreneurship, and teams for creating peaceful communities. And then, also being able to have those teams in our micro communities where we're helping to house people, heal people, and educate people on a career path that'll work for them. So that's what we're preparing now, is to just really be able to launch this in a way that should be scalable. And that's one of the reasons why we live in a motorhome, because we get one campground starting to be this micro community. We want to create a network of them. So, and actually, we have somebody working with us who intends to help us be able to franchise the model. So there we go. Another way to
Great.
create income.
Yeah. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the main things that has been pushing you is the social aspect of it, right? Like being able to actually help the community. Is there anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, actually there really is, because I'll tell you, one of the things that became a motivating factor during all of this was my husband actually ran for governor of North Carolina. And we came face to face with the belly of the beast. And we just got so disgusted at how corrupted the system was. He ran as an independent, and because he was independent, the whole system just squashed him, didn't allow him to be heard at all. And we had a lot of people who really loved what we were talking about and how we were approaching things. So that actually has become a big core of why we're doing what we're doing, because I believe that small business owners coming together to create new solutions and solve problems in our communities is going to be far more effective than waiting for any foolish politician to do it for us.
Yeah, great. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Next question I have for you is what sets your business apart in a crowded market? There's a lot of people trying to do this social work, right? And you yourself know that the real change that you're making is actually effective. But how do you convey that to any customers, or how can you convince them that you're actually worth investing in and that the change that you're creating is realistic?
Well, and we're about to find out how good I am at making that sale with people because, first of all, how are we different? Well, first, I don't know of anybody else who's built a system like we've built. Maybe there's one out there somewhere, but I don't know where it is if they have. So I don't truly look at us as having competitors per se, but I will say that it is a challenge to find, to be able to put together enough information and be able to sell it to people because ideally with these campgrounds that we're getting ready to have, ideally we would love to be able to do it as a totally self-sustaining kind of thing. And that's another thing. We have a nonprofit. We can accept donations. In fact, we're getting some today through Giving Tuesday on Facebook. So, we are getting some donations, but it certainly isn't in the amounts that we really need to have. So, we have the ability to get the in-kind donations, the cash donations. We can have philanthropists. But ideally, if we can make this campground totally self-sustaining so that we don't need grants, we don't need donors, we don't need philanthropists, that the cash flow from the campground itself and the business that we're building there to repair RVs in the campground creates enough cash flow to be able to cover the cost of running this kind of program, and you don't have to have the nonprofit as involved. So that's a huge piece that is got to become more of the standard in terms of how community work gets done. Instead of just begging for money from anywhere you can get it, grant money and all this kind of stuff, build businesses that can create enough income to be able to subsidize the programs you want for the folks who can't pay for them.
Okay. And the last question that I have for you in this section is more geared towards your work ethic and how you have maintained um, the way you work over 25 years, right? 25 years is no joke. A lot of the people who are going to be watching this aren't even 25 years old. So we genuinely have no idea how hard it is. So what specific methods or anything that you have used to keep yourself motivated and focused throughout these 25 years? Obviously, you have a end goal in mind, right? If I have a project at school, I see, okay, it can be done in a week, but that is nothing compared to 25 years. So, what specific things did you do to keep yourself engaged and make sure that you were creating sustainable change over time?
That's an awesome question. One of the things, and there's a lot of emotion that goes into creating something over a 25-year period. There's no doubt. And there's been plenty of heartaches. There's been plenty of, oh my God, why didn't that work the way I thought it was going to, and things of that nature. So it's very important, and this is probably even more important for younger generations to understand. There are lots of ways to deal with helping us to have a healthy emotional life, a healthy mental wellness life, other than, through the pharmaceutical industry. And this is a big piece of what we're trying to teach people. I mean, you can find so much to be able to create peace within yourself through, things like meditation and different types of breathing. And there's something called emotional freedom technique, which is about tapping on different parts of your body and being able to release a lot of stress, because stress is one of the things that none of us are dealing very well with, and a lot of us end up with health issues when stress is not being taken care of. So for me, a lot of it has been developing my spiritual side of my life. I do believe in a higher power. I respect whatever people think about that. I like to talk about the God of your understanding. So, it doesn't matter to me what people are looking towards, but I think there is a missing component in our society right now that a lot of people are questioning whether there's any such thing as a higher power or God or source or whatever you want to call it. And yet, that has been a huge, huge part of me maintaining this 25-year journey, is just having that belief, believing that I am being guided, I am being helped. An interesting kind of phrase that I've come to use is that, I believe that we are like computers that get things downloaded into them. And I believe that comes from a higher power somewhere. So that has been a huge component through everything that I've done is, when I get stuck, when I'm not sure what to do next, I'm out walking and I'm just clearing my mind and just saying, okay, if there is a higher power guiding this, and I expect some new information, some new ideas. And it's amazing how things will start to come to you and you're able to, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of that and see that. So that has been a huge component that has kept me going, and just the fact that I pursue a lot of, I've been through acupuncture and chiropractic and all kinds of different healing modalities just to keep my body, mind, and spirit going forward in good ways. My husband and I are big believers in mineral-based nutrition, and this is one of the challenges we have in our society right now is there is no minerals in our food anymore. So you can't just eat healthy and have what your brain needs for brain health. Your brain needs minerals, and if we're not taking good quality mineral-based nutrition, then we become a lot more subjected to depression and anxiety and all of those kinds of things that can derail us. So, those are the kinds of things, just being really aware of body, mind, spirit, health, being very open to the idea that I can receive guidance that helps me to solve problems and to just keep on moving forward through it all.
Yep. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, right? As I said before, 25-year journey. That is nothing comparable to what someone like myself or a lot of people have experienced, right? A lot of people, when they have their business, obviously they want it to be as prosperous and long lasting as this, but but as you described, right, there's so many different aspects, not just from the business side, because if you burn yourself out too quickly, or if you like burnout is possibly one of the worst things in my opinion, because you have so much potential, it's it's getting wasted because you honestly put too much of effort in the beginning and you just don't feel like doing it anymore. But yeah, that's all really great advice, and now we can get into the advice section. So this is kind of synthesizing everything that you have talked about. So we'll just touch on this a little bit because we have talked a lot about the advice already. But yeah, was there any let's go with this. So what advice would you give to, let's say, like a young person who wants to start a business but doesn't know where to begin? It doesn't have to be specific to what their business idea is, but what sort of a mindset and what they should go in knowing. Like, what are the main things that they should know while going into starting a business?
And I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but my husband and I have actually done several young entrepreneur camps. So we have taken, teenagers, middle schoolers, and young adults, and we have had camps where we've kind of introduced them to different ideas, different things that are possible. To me, there's always the three simplest ways to start a business. Doesn't necessarily involve a lot of innovation. I had no idea I was going to become an innovator when I got started. When I got started, it was all about providing a service. So, even young people can provide services. How many have lawn care businesses and, being able to go out and do painting of stuff for people? I mean, there's so many simple services that people can start and be able to do. A second one is whatever knowledge base somebody has. My gosh, the internet now allows you to be able to create webinars and seminars and do all kinds of stuff with Patreon and, all these different ways to be able to make money online. I mean, that's definitely a biggie. And then, of course, adopting products to sell. There are literally hundreds of companies out here where you can adopt a product to sell if you get excited about it. And they cover all kinds of different things. I mean, everything from legal services to nutrition to, cookware to knives to, it just, whatever somebody can get excited about. That is a simple way to be able to start creating your own income and experiment with things. Like the nutrition company we work with, people can join and be in business for $30 and they get all kinds of personal development training that helps you to develop the stamina that it takes to keep going. So those are all things that I encourage people to explore and just see if there is a simple way you can start to learn and experience and create some income so you see what's possible. Because every young entrepreneur camp we did ended with them doing a business expo of some sort where they actually made money and took it home. So they had confidence at the end of it that they could create their own income. They did not need anybody's permission to do it. So that's a biggie. But when you talk about advice, here's the biggie that I tell people of all ages is I truly believe that we all were born with a piece of a super puzzle. That if we were all out here actively creating whatever that piece is that was put in our hearts before we were born, if we were all actively creating that, we would be living on a planet with health, wealth, and peace for all. And the fact that we're not seeing as much of that as we'd like right now means there's too many people still sitting on their puzzle piece. So I want everybody who watches this to understand you are the miracles we're waiting for.
Yeah. Everybody has something that they're unique at. They can contribute. And it's not even like everybody has I'll kind of take that back, right? It's not like everybody has something completely unique, right? There's 8 billion people on this planet, but there's so many aspects of just anything that somebody can be passionate about. And ultimately, it's that small thing that contributes to how our world works today. And yeah, that was really great advice. I really hope the audience also takes that into account. But yeah, we are close to wrapping up at this point. So I know you spent a lot of time here with us, right? This recording is coming to almost an hour at this point, so it's only fair that people get to know where they can learn more about you and your entire system. So apart from your LinkedIn, is there any other way you would like people to try to reach out to you or engage with any of your products or anything like that?
Well, I do have a Facebook group called the Unity for Wellness and Peace Network, and I invite people to look that up. We've got about 2,500 members now, and I'm always looking to grow that. And anybody who joins the group that has a business idea, has something that they think that they're here to create more unity, wellness, and peace in the world, I invite them to come to the group and reach out to me, and I'd be happy to interview them in the group. And that would go for you as well. So just know that you are welcome to come to our group and do that. You can also you can see what this whole system looks like by going to unityforwellnessandpeace.com. So that kind of is my main page now that shows the three-part system. And if you click on the different pictures in there, it actually will take you to our individual websites, so you can see more about those kinds of things. So yes, it's a lot of information. It could be overwhelming. I'm not going to lie about that. But people can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and some of my personal stuff where I mentioned my Find Your Song and Sing It class. That is a class that is great for young people who are kind of struggling with trying to figure out where they want to go. And if you just go to CheyenneKreamer.com, you'll learn more about the healing work I do, as well as about Find Your Song and Sing It. And there's probably something else there too. I'm not sure. There you have it.
Yeah, no, it's just great that you're spending so much time here with us to help young entrepreneurs try to actually get their idea to life, right? To not feel so discouraged in society. And yeah, it was really great speaking to you today. Um, but thank you for all for listening to How They Built It. This is a podcast that is essentially dedicated to you. It's dedicated to how you are going to pursue your business journey. And I really hope everybody got some valuable takeaways from today. Stay tuned for the next episode, and until then, keep building your own journey.